My sister introduced herself as the new director 5 minutes before the inspector walked in. She said it brightly, like a child announcing a magic trick, her hands clasped in front of her as if the title itself made her taller. My parents stood behind her, both smiling with the kind of pride that didn't require competence, only confidence. I sat against the wall with a visitor badge clipped to my blazer. Visitor, not director, not operations lead, not the person who had run this rehab center for a decade. Just visitor. Inspector Laura Miles stepped into the conference room with a calm authority that made everyone straighten in their chairs. She carried a thick binder under her arm, the latest compliance manual, and a tablet already loaded with the day's checklist. Everyone expected her to greet Chloe first. Instead, she paused. Her eyes drifted across the room and stopped on me. Is Emily Ward present? The question sliced through the air. Chloe's smile twitched. My mother's posture stiffened. My father cleared his throat. I didn't move. The badge on my chest felt heavier than the walls around us. Chloe stepped forward quickly. I'm Emily's sister. I'm the new director here. You can speak with me. Inspector Miles didn't even blink. Where is Emily? My parents exchanged a glance, silent, nervous, unprepared. They had spent the last few months introducing Chloe as the face of ward renewal centers. They had plastered her photo across internal memos, emails, and staff bulletins. They had told donors she was the visionary leader who had always been deeply involved in operations. But none of their words meant anything to the inspector who knew the truth. The truth in her binder, the truth in her reports, the truth in every system that had kept this place standing. I kept my voice steady. I'm here. Inspector Miles nodded once, as if confirming something she already suspected. Good. We need to begin with the policy revisions. The last set was signed by you. Chloe's head snapped toward our parents. Signed by her? My mother forced a laugh that sounded too bright. Emily just handled minor clerical work. Inspector Miles flipped open the binder. These revisions determine state compliance. Nothing about them is minor. The room shifted. Slowly, uncomfortably, like the first crack appearing in a structure built on denial. Chloe forced another smile. Well, I'm the director now. I'll be taking the lead on everything today. Inspector Miles didn't return the smile. Then I'll need to see your audit log, medication reconciliation, safety protocols, and the emergency response updates. Chloe froze. All of those were written by Emily. The inspector waited. My parents stared at me with a look I recognized all too well, panic mixed with expectation. A silent plea, fix this again. Resolve it like you always do. But I didn't move. I wasn't here to save them. Not anymore. Because this moment, the confusion, the collapse, the sudden realization, had been set into motion months earlier. Long before this inspection. Long before Chloe claimed a title she didn't understand. Long before they erased my name and expected me to stay quiet. It started the day they told me I didn't belong in the room at all. And that day began with a video call that should have been routine, until my parents decided to rewrite my entire life with a single announcement. The collapse hadn't started with the inspection. It started 3 months earlier during a video call I wasn't supposed to attend. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in the medication room of our Riverside facility, updating documentation after a double shift. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother, join the family call. Important. I wiped my hands, stepped outside, and logged in. My parents were seated together in their home office, both smiling too widely. Chloe appeared on screen from her downtown apartment, hair perfect, makeup flawless, ring light glowing behind her. I was the last one to join. Oh good, Emily's here, my mother said, waving at the camera like I was an audience member instead of their eldest daughter. I felt a small twist in my stomach. What's going on? My father cleared his throat dramatically, his version of a drum roll. We have big news. After careful thought, we've decided it's time to prepare for the next generation of leadership at ward renewal centers. I nodded slowly. Okay, so what does that mean? My mother reached toward Chloe's camera tile on the screen. We're announcing Chloe as the new director. She's coming home to lead the organization. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The air felt too loud, too bright, too unreal. My ears rang with the sound of fluorescent lights buzzing behind me. 10 years of sacrificed weekends, overnight shifts, crisis calls, 10 years of stabilizing failing centers and rewriting every protocol, 10 years of covering for their mistakes. And they were giving everything to the daughter who only showed up for holidays. Chloe beamed. I know this must be shocking, Em, but it just feels right. I've always wanted to help the family business. I stared at her. Always wanted. She hadn't even visited a center in 3 years. My father nodded proudly. Chloe has leadership qualities the organization needs. Fresh ideas, energy, a modern touch. I swallowed hard. And where does that leave me? My mother tilted her head sympathetically, like she was comforting a child who'd lost a toy. Oh, sweetheart, you'll still have your role. Behind-the-scenes things, you're reliable with the technical stuff. Behind the scenes, reliable, technical stuff. Every word cut deeper than the last. Chloe jumped in, oblivious. This is perfect, Em. You can focus on boring, detailed things while I handle the big picture leadership. Boring, detailed things. I tightened my grip on my phone. So you're replacing me? No, my father insisted. We're just reorganizing responsibilities. You'll support Chloe as she transitions into full leadership. Support her. Support someone who had never answered a single midnight emergency call. Someone who didn't know the difference between an incident report and an audit freeze. My mother clasped her hands. We'll announce it publicly next week. Chloe's getting professional headshots done on Friday. You're welcome to help with organization or photography if you like. I felt a jolt in my chest. Photography. They wanted me to take pictures of my replacement. Chloe added. Also, Mom and Dad want a leadership photo for the new website. Just me and them. You can take the pictures. Your phone camera is great. The humiliation hit like a physical weight. My throat tightened. My vision stung. But I didn't let it show. That's when my father said the line that burned into my memory. Emily, don't make this emotional. Chloe is simply better suited to be the face of the company. You're good at the background work. The background work. They weren't just replacing me. They were erasing me. I ended the call quietly. Not with anger. Not with tears. Just a calm, hollow understanding that everything I had built, everything I had held together meant nothing to them. But the fallout didn't stop there. An hour later, my mother texted about Friday's photo shoot. Remember to come early and help set up lights. Wear something neutral so you don't stand out in pictures. I finally understood. They didn't want me there as a leader. They wanted me there as a prop. And it only got worse when Chloe showed up at the center and made a mistake so dangerous, so careless, that my parents blamed me just to protect her. Chloe arrived at the Riverside Center the following Monday, stepping into the lobby like she was walking onto a film set. She wore designer sneakers, a pastel blazer, and an expression that said she was here to elevate the place. Staff members exchanged looks, curious, polite, and slightly worried. She waved at them like a celebrity greeting fans. Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe. I'll be overseeing things now. Let's make this place beautiful. Beautiful. This wasn't a fashion studio. It was a rehab center with patients detoxing, recovering, and struggling to stay alive. I followed her toward the medication room because I already sensed trouble. Chloe, you can't just relax, Em. I'm not a child. She swiped her new badge. My parents had printed it already and walked in before I could stop her. Inside, a nurse named Clarissa was organizing the medication trays for the evening round. Chloe's eyes widened. This room is so depressing. Why is everything beige? And why are these trays so cluttered? Clarissa opened her mouth to explain, but Chloe reached for the medication board before she could. These labels are awful. I'm updating the schedule layout. She grabbed the dry erase marker. Chloe, don't touch that. I stepped forward. Chloe rolled her eyes. Emily, it's a chart. Calm down. I know how to organize. And before Clarissa or I could stop her, she erased half the medication timing grid. Clarissa gasped softly. Chloe, that grid is tied to dosing schedules for 8 patients. If we lose the order, it's just a chart, Chloe said, unfazed. We'll make it more user-friendly. Trust me. I reached for her wrist gently but firmly. Chloe, stop. She yanked her arm back, offended. Why are you always so dramatic? You're so stuck in your ways. Clarissa's phone buzzed with an alert, nightly doses due in 90 minutes. And that's when Chloe realized what she had erased. Wait, these numbers matter. Clarissa nodded, pale. They're tied to prescriptions. Chloe froze, her face drained of color. Oh, Clarissa spoke carefully. If we don't reconstruct the schedule correctly, we risk double dosing or missing doses entirely. Chloe looked at me, suddenly small. Emily, fix it. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came an hour later. My parents arrived the moment Chloe called them in tears. My father marched into the medication room with the anger he usually reserved for malfunctioning equipment or late invoices. What happened here? Chloe stood beside him, arms crossed, acting wounded. Emily yelled at me in front of the staff. She made me feel stupid. I was just trying to help. My breath caught. What? My mother looked horrified. Emily, why would you do that? Clarissa stepped forward bravely. Ma'am, Chloe erased the medication. My mother cut her off. I don't need excuses. I need professionalism. My father turned on me sharply. Emily, we put Chloe in leadership to support us, not to be attacked by you. Your jealousy is becoming unmanageable. Jealousy? I had spent 10 years keeping this place from falling apart. I took a slow breath. Chloe erased the schedule board. I was trying to stop her. Chloe gasped dramatically. I made one tiny mistake because I wasn't trained like you two, and instead of teaching me, she humiliated me. Clarissa tried again. Sir, Chloe erased, my father snapped. Enough. This is not Clarissa's concern. Then he looked directly at me. Emily, you are responsible for this wing. This medication error falls on you, not Chloe. My stomach dropped. A medication error that I prevented, a crisis that Chloe created, was now pinned on me. I stared at my parents. You're blaming me for her mistake. My mother's voice turned icy. You're older. We expect you to behave like it. In that moment, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet finality that felt like a fracture finally giving way after years of pressure. Chloe reached out, touching my arm gently as if she were comforting me. Don't worry, Em. You'll get the hang of supporting me. It's just an adjustment. Supporting her. Supporting the person who nearly medicated 8 patients incorrectly. Supporting the girl who erased my life's work with a smile. I stepped back from her touch. This isn't sustainable. My father frowned. What is that supposed to mean? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure yet, but the seed had been planted. And by the end of that week, Chloe would make another mistake. Much bigger, much more dangerous. That would push me to the point of no return. That mistake would nearly cost a patient their life, and my parents would still defend Chloe, forcing me to face a truth I couldn't unsee. The mistake that changed everything happened 3 days later, on a rainy Thursday when the center already felt stretched thin. A new patient had been admitted overnight, a middle-aged man detoxing from a dangerous combination of substances. He needed close monitoring, stable routines, and 0 disruptions. Chloe arrived late that morning, running into the lobby with a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. Sorry, traffic was insane. She said it loudly, as if the entire world had been waiting on her. I was reviewing the intake notes when she swept into the nurse's station, flipping her hair back like she was stepping into a brainstorming meeting, not a clinical environment. Okay, team, quick update. I'm rearranging today's activity schedule. We're moving group therapy to the afternoon and flipping the wellness class with the intake assessments. The nurses looked at her in confusion. The schedule she wanted to change was tied directly to patient stability, not a casual swap. It hadn't even been discussed with operations, or clinical staff, or the therapists, or me. Chloe, I said quietly, you can't rearrange detox patients like furniture. These times are medical, not aesthetic. She waved her hand dismissively. Emily, everything here is so rigid. Patients need energy. Flow. I'm trying to create a better experience. I stepped in front of her. This isn't a spa. People's bodies are crashing inside themselves. There is no flow. Before she could argue, a nurse named Thomas rushed over, pale. Room 12 is agitated. He's asking for his scheduled counseling block. We told him it was moved, and he's refusing his vitals check. Chloe blinked. He's refusing? Why? I stared at her. Because you erased the one predictable thing he was clinging to today. She crossed her arms defensively. Well, no one told me the schedule was that serious. I felt something inside me snap. It's literally printed in his chart. You walked past 3 signs explaining it. Thomas interrupted, panicked. He's escalating. We need the crisis counselor. I ran with him down the hallway. The patient was pacing wildly, breathing fast, muttering to himself. His withdrawal symptoms were spiking. The disruption had triggered a dangerous psychological break in his routine. We had to stabilize him immediately. For 20 minutes, our team worked through de-escalation protocols I had written, refined, and reinforced for years. Slowly, painfully, the patient began to settle. His breathing steadied. His hands stopped shaking. He leaned against the wall and finally agreed to sit down for monitoring. It could have ended so much worse. When the crisis finally eased, I stepped out into the hall, exhausted. And that's when I saw them. My parents had arrived. Chloe was already in the hallway, tears brimming in her eyes, shaking her head as if the universe had wronged her personally. "Mom, Dad, it was horrible," she said, voice trembling. "I tried to fix the schedule and Emily exploded at me. In front of the staff. It was humiliating." My mother gasped dramatically and rushed to Chloe's side. "Are you all right? Did she yell at you?" Yell? I hadn't raised my voice once. My father turned toward me, eyes sharp. "Emily, what is going on? This is the second incident this week." I felt the fatigue in my bones. The patient destabilized because Chloe changed the schedule without approval. We had to intervene quickly. Chloe cut in. I was trying to help. The schedule was ugly. I was just improving things. How was I supposed to know it would cause a meltdown? My mother stroked Chloe's arm. "Sweetheart, no one blames you. You weren't trained for this. Emily should have supervised properly." I stepped forward. Supervised. She wasn't supposed to touch the schedule at all. My father held up his hand sharply. "Emily, enough. Chloe is learning. You're older. You should be guiding her, not criticizing her." My voice tightened. "Dad, a man could have ended up in the hospital today." My mother glared. "Stop exaggerating." They weren't listening. Not to the danger. Not to the staff. Not to reality. Only to Chloe's feelings. Chloe sniffed softly. "I don't feel welcome here. Everyone treats me like I'm in the way." My father turned to me again. "If you cannot work cooperatively with Chloe, we will need to reevaluate your position here." The floor felt like it tilted. My position, my role, my work. They were threatening to remove the one person who had just prevented a medical emergency, all to protect the daughter who caused it. I looked at Chloe. Perfect hair. Perfect pout. Not an ounce of accountability. Then I looked at my parents, who saw only what they wanted to see. And in that moment, right there in the hallway that still smelled faintly of antiseptic and panic, I understood something permanent. There was nothing I could do to earn their respect. No amount of loyalty, competence, or sacrifice would ever make them choose me. Not over Chloe. Not even over negligence. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me free. And that freedom is what led me to the office of a woman who didn't offer comfort, only solutions. The kind that would change everything. Natalie Green's office didn't look like the place where someone rebuilt a life. It looked like the place where someone ended one. Clean lines, cold air conditioning, a wall of silent certificates, a single plant trying and failing to soften the space. She gestured for me to sit. Her expression didn't show sympathy, only focus. It was strangely comforting. "Tell me everything." For the first time in months, I explained the truth without editing myself. The favoritism, the humiliation, the erasure, the medication charts, the patient crisis, the threat to my job. Natalie listened without interrupting. Every few minutes she made a small note, nothing dramatic, just a quick stroke of her pen. When I finished, she leaned back. "Your family made a catastrophic mistake," she said calmly. "They assumed the buildings are the business. They aren't. You are." Her voice wasn't flattering. It was factual. She tapped her pen lightly against her notebook. "What you built over 10 years, protocols, standards, systems, compliance frameworks, those are the spine of the operation. Without them, the centers collapse. Your parents don't understand that. Your sister definitely doesn't." I felt a faint ache behind my ribs. For years, I thought competence would eventually earn respect. But competence had become the cage they kept me in. "Emily," she said, leaning forward, "you need protection. Not emotional protection. Structural protection." I swallowed. "What does that even look like?" She slid a sheet of paper toward me. It looks like this. At the top was a name: Ward Health Integrity Foundation, a nonprofit operational foundation designed to hold all clinical protocols, compliance systems, staff training manuals, digital infrastructure, and legally binding operational standards. My hands froze. Natalie continued. This foundation will own everything that keeps the centers legal. You created the systems. You have the right to assign them. You also have the right to protect them. I blinked. But my parents, your parents don't understand what they sign. Not because they're malicious, because they're reckless. She pulled out a set of administrative documents. You still have operational authority under the emergency powers they gave you years ago. All you need is their signature on routine transfers. They will assume it's stability paperwork. I hesitated. Wouldn't that be cruel? Natalie's expression softened slightly. Cruel is letting you carry an entire company alone while they rewrite history to center your sister. Cruel is blaming you for her mistakes. Cruel is risking patient lives. She paused. This isn't cruelty. This is accountability. I stared at the foundation proposal. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like truth, finally given shape. Natalie folded her hands. The foundation won't take anything from them, but it will ensure they can't misuse what you built. If Chloe wants to lead, she'll have to meet the standards. If she can't, the foundation has the right to deny certification. For the first time, I inhaled fully. And if I walk away, Natalie nodded. Then they inherit the shell, the image, the buildings, the debt, the name, but not the system. The shift inside me was quiet, a long, slow settling of pieces that had been scattered for years. We spent the next week building the foundation. I gathered every protocol I had ever created, every revised compliance form, every emergency response plan, every digital log, every staff training module, every audit trail, every operational manual. We mapped out the transfer structure, drafted clean, lawful documents, prepared the filings. I didn't lie to my parents. Every paper they signed was labeled accurately. They simply didn't read them. They signed while checking emails, signed while talking to guests, signed while deciding which dress Chloe should wear for her new leadership headshot. Chloe, meanwhile, drifted in and out of the centers, proudly calling herself director while creating messes staff had to quietly fix. When the foundation documents were finalized, Natalie handed me one more form. This is your resignation letter. I stared at it, feeling a strange combination of grief and relief. If you don't leave, Natalie said, they will keep exploiting you. They will never stop. Not until you do. I signed the letter. The next morning before sunrise, I walked into my office, the same office Chloe had tried to claim, and placed the letter on the desk. I didn't leave a note, didn't ask for understanding, didn't wait for gratitude. I walked out of the building with nothing but my bag and the knowledge that, for the first time in a decade, the crisis wasn't mine to solve. By the time my parents read the resignation, I was already gone. I didn't move cities. I didn't run. I simply relocated to a nearby town and started a pilot program under the foundation, a small outpatient recovery initiative that needed leadership but didn't demand my soul. The silence was intoxicating, but the collapse at my parents' centers was already brewing. And 3 months later, when a surprise inspection hit the main facility, everything they had refused to see came crashing down, starting with Chloe. 3 months passed without a single call from my family. Not a message, not a request, nothing. The silence wasn't peaceful at first. It felt unfamiliar, like stepping into a room without furniture. But slowly it became something else, something I had never experienced before, a life that belonged to me. The pilot program I was running under the foundation grew steadily. Staff trusted the structure. Patients responded well to the predictability. Every day felt like proof that I wasn't the problem. My environment had been. Then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. The main facility, the one Chloe was running. I answered cautiously. "Emily, we need you." It was Helen, sounding breathless. "What happened?" "We have a surprise state inspection. Chloe is panicking. Your parents are arguing with the inspector. She keeps asking for documents Chloe can't find. Emily, she's asking for you." I felt a tightness in my chest, not fear, not responsibility, just inevitability. Which inspector? Helen exhaled shakily. Laura Miles, of course. The one person who had already seen through my family's performance. The one who knew exactly who built the backbone of the organization. I grabbed my coat. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I arrived, the lobby looked nothing like the place I used to run. Staff hurried back and forth with lost expressions. A patient was sitting on the floor crying while a tech tried to calm her. Two nurses whispered anxiously over incomplete charts. Someone dropped a folder and papers scattered across the tile. And then I saw Chloe. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was frizzed. Her hands trembled around a stack of paperwork. She looked like a child holding a machine she didn't understand, hoping it wouldn't explode. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. "Emily, thank God, please, please help me. She's tearing everything apart." I stepped aside. "I don't work here anymore." Her face collapsed. "But you can still fix this. You always fix things." Behind her, my parents appeared. My father's voice sounded strained, desperate. "Why weren't you answering your phone last night? We needed you." "Because I wasn't on call." "Not anymore." My mother looked frantic. "Emily, this inspector is being unreasonable. She wants documentation only you know how to pull." I met their eyes one at a time. They still didn't understand. Even after everything, they believed I was theirs to summon. Before I could reply, a calm voice spoke from behind them. "Miss Ward?" Inspector Laura Miles stood in the hallway holding her tablet, her expression unreadable. I nodded. "We need to continue the evaluation. Since you represent the Ward Health Integrity Foundation, your presence is required." My parents stared, stunned. "Represent the what?" My mother whispered. "The foundation, the one ensuring that your centers meet license standards," Inspector Miles replied evenly. "Your eldest daughter is its director." Chloe blinked rapidly. "Director?" She turned to me. "You run something without telling us." I didn't answer. There was nothing to explain. We moved into the conference room. Charts were stacked haphazardly across the table. The air felt tight, tense, sour with panic. Inspector Miles began reading off her notes. "I have several major concerns. Missing clinical logs, unapproved schedule changes, inconsistent medication reconciliation, staff without documented training. None of these issues existed under the previous operational structure." Chloe gripped the back of a chair. "I didn't know the training needed documentation. And the schedule changes, I was trying to make things better." The inspector stared at her. "Intention does not equal compliance. You are responsible for understanding the standards before taking on leadership." My father's voice cracked. "We can fix this. Emily will help us fix it." The inspector shook her head. "She cannot assist you. She is here to evaluate your compliance, not to rescue the facility. The foundation requires neutrality." My mother looked at me as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. "Evaluate? Emily, you wouldn't let this place fail. You wouldn't let us fail." I looked at her, really looked. For years, I had seen that expression as a command. Now I saw it as what it always was, dependence without respect. Inspector Miles placed a form on the table. "Emily, as director of the governing foundation, you must determine whether this facility may continue operating under provisional certification." I reviewed the data, the missing entries, the unsafe changes, the oversights, the risks. And the truth was simple. If any other facility presented this level of failure, I would deny them without hesitation. My family waited in silence. Chloe's lip trembled. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's hands shook. But their fear was not my responsibility. Not anymore. I signed the form. Provisional denial pending corrective action. Not a shutdown, not revenge, just reality. Chloe stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Emily, what are we supposed to do?" My answer was calm. "You follow the standards, or you accept the consequences." Her face broke. My parents looked lost. I collected my bag. The inspector thanked me and continued her work. As I walked toward the exit, Chloe whispered behind me, "Emily, please don't leave." I paused for a heartbeat, then kept walking. For the first time in my life, I didn't turn back. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel responsible. I felt free. And in the weeks that followed, while they fought to repair the damage they created, I finally discovered what life feels like when you stop carrying people who were never willing to carry you. The days after the inspection passed quietly, almost eerily so. no emergencies, no frantic phone calls, no demands disguised as family requests. For the first time in years, my mornings were my own. I woke early, not because someone needed me, but because the sun through my new bedroom window felt soft and unhurried. My coffee tasted different too, steady, peaceful, not gulped between crises. The silence around me didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Meanwhile, the fallout at the main facility spread quickly. The foundation began sending corrective action reminders directly to Chloe and my parents. Every documentation gap, every untrained staff member, every schedule violation, every policy inconsistency. I wasn't copied on any of it. I didn't need to be. It wasn't my responsibility anymore. But the world had a way of showing me the consequences anyway. A week after the inspection, I stopped by the Community Resource Center to drop off a few foundation training materials. As I walked past the Medicaid office, I saw them, my parents, sitting side by side in the waiting room. My father's posture was hunched, his hand rubbing his forehead. My mother clutched her purse tightly, her eyes distant and tired. Their clothes looked slightly wrinkled, as if they'd gotten dressed in a hurry. I paused for only a second. They didn't see me, and I didn't step in, not out of resentment, out of clarity. For years, I would have run to them, asked what was wrong, tried to fix the situation before it spiraled. But now, it wasn't my job to patch the holes they kept punching in their own world. I walked past the office doors and out into the sunlight. Each step felt lighter than the one before. A few weeks later, I visited one of the smaller facilities, not for them, but for the Foundation's ongoing support program. As I walked through the hallway, I saw a familiar figure at the end of the corridor. Chloe. But not the polished Chloe with designer blazers and glossy hair. This version wore scrubs 2 sizes too big, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail. She was pushing a resident's wheelchair slowly down the hallway, checking that the blanket was tucked around his legs so he wouldn't get cold. Her movements were careful, tentative, almost humble. She didn't see me, and I didn't interrupt. For a moment, I just watched her, not with spite, not with satisfaction, just with distance. Without the praise, without the spotlight, without our parents telling her she was extraordinary, she looked human, still unprepared, still lost, but trying. And maybe that was the closest she would ever come to understanding the work I carried for years. Later that afternoon, one of the nurses pulled me aside. "How are things at the pilot program?" she asked. "Good, steady." She smiled softly. "We're glad you're still connected through the Foundation. It feels safer knowing the standards won't be compromised." Safer. What a small word for something so large. On my way out, I paused at the doorway and took one last look at the building. Not with longing, not with regret, but with a sense of finality. This place used to feel like the weight on my chest. Now it felt like something I had walked through and out of. In the months that followed, the center struggled. The corrective action list grew. Chloe tried to keep up, but the structure wasn't something you could fake or charm your way through. My parents attended meeting after meeting, each one reminding them of the standards they ignored for years. I didn't rescue them. Not because I wanted them to fail, because their failure no longer belonged to me. My life slowly rebuilt itself around new routines, better boundaries, clearer relationships, work that didn't consume or erase me. Some stories end in dramatic confrontations. Mine didn't need that. It ended with distance, clean, simple, quiet, because sometimes freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives with space. Space where responsibility used to live. Space you finally give back to yourself. Space to breathe without permission. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one holding the structure together. I wasn't the backbone they leaned on. I wasn't the scaffolding keeping their world upright. I wasn't the daughter who fixed everything. I was just Emily, and that was enough. If this story stayed with you, stay close. More stories of boundaries, truth, and quiet justice are on the way.